the course of my life, I've had many neighbors. Some I've gotten along with really well. In fact, one set of neighbors are now actually my daughter's in-laws. There have been neighbors that I would share my tools with, help them on projects when needed, and just enjoy their company. However, there were others that I didn't seem to get along with. I wonder if you have had any of those neighbors like that. Maybe it's best if you didn't answer that question. Well, the reason I bring this up is because of the ways I would think about these people. I didn't hate them. Maybe it wasn't that I disliked them. Maybe it was just because I really didn't know them that well. I remember living in an apartment in Wisconsin across the hall from a family that would cook with curry almost every night. I remember Sherry being pregnant and having to hold her breath as we raced to our door, hoping not to allow much of the smell to permeate the doorway. I've had neighbors who wouldn't come out of the house, ones that would ignore me, and even those who acted like they didn't like me. I've had neighbors from different ethnic backgrounds, beliefs, economic status, and many other terms that unfortunately we've used to divide us. I have to admit that I wasn't always the one who would go and introduce myself, maybe even share my faith with them, or at least make them feel like I respected or liked them. The differences kept us apart. Maybe you've had similar experiences, and maybe you feel this way about those in the church. Beliefs are different. Some are conservative while others are liberal. Some support movements around anti-racism, and some are for full inclusion, and others just want to love Jesus. Every church family has differences. Every church family. Journey of Hope is no different. But what do we do about it? How do we treat each other? I mean, do we love everyone or just those who think and act like us? We find an interesting passage in the book of Acts. It comes in the 10th chapter, verse 47. It says this: "Can anyone withhold water for baptizing these people who have received the Holy Spirit just as we have?" Peter makes a statement shortly after his vision of a sheet coming down from the sky with all kinds of unclean animals on it. He hears the voice of Jesus that tells him to eat from these animals, and what God has made clean, do not call common. Following this, Peter preaches the good news to the Gentiles. Yes, those horrible Gentiles. While he was preaching, the Holy Spirit fell on them. They began praising God and worshiping. The fruit of the Spirit was evident in their worship, and Peter recognized it. The people wanted to be baptized, and Peter said, "Why not?" God had poured out His Spirit on them and blessed them. Who was Peter, or anyone else for that matter, to withhold the water from baptism? God made the choice. Peter followed the Spirit's guidance. When I think about all of those whom the church has excluded, whether it was the Gentiles from the start, the people from Samaria, or maybe it was keeping women out of the role of pastor, or recently those from the LGBTQ community, I'm reminded of what Peter went through in this story. When we truly see the Holy Spirit active in someone's life, whether it's those I've just mentioned or even those pesky neighbors of ours, we must remember that the only decision we should be concerned with is God's. I thank God daily that I am not the judge and that I will not be seated on the throne on that judgment day. My place in this world is to love. I am called to love God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I'm also called to love my neighbor as myself. And guess what? So are you. So how are you going to love your neighbors today? From the Field Journal, May 7th.